Welcome to another episode of Dominant Mets Nation, episode 5 of our off-season Central series, and we got another very interesting video today. We're going to examine some very important topics when it comes to this offseason, and this affects MLB fans, and this specifically affects Mets fans. So you're going to want to stick around. If you're a passionate MLB fan, you're going to love this channel. Please like, please subscribe. We have an X account, so please go over there and follow us at Dominant Mets. It's a new account, so it's an additional way so that we can communicate with each other. All right, so we got, reading the tea leaves, and it's very interesting seeing how an offseason developed. We know that after the World Series wraps up, it's a very short time before free agents get signed. You have that negotiational 5-day window, and then after 5 days, free agents can actually sign. This year, it turns out November 4th is that key day, and we are just days away. So I'm hearing all the rumors swirl already. Juan Soto, we know he is the top fish, top guy in the market. We have known that for years and years to come. Last year, big fish was Shohei Ohtani. This year, we got Mr. Juan Soto. Big difference between Ohtani and Soto is age, and obviously Ohtani was that magical unicorn two-way player. All right, so Soto definitely has the age advantage, but he's not a two-way player. He's not a great defensive guy, and obviously we know he doesn't pitch, right? So we hear these crazy market demands out there, and I'm seeing that over $700 million. That's what he's shooting for right now. $700 million. And you hear that 12 teams are already involved. Many teams have reached out. One of those teams are our New York Mets. But you got a lot of teams that have heavily interest. But I've heard a lot of people kind of say, number one, is it worth it to give him the money? And number two, and this is what we're going to examine first, how are these contract demands coming about, right? Where do we get $600 million from? Where do we get $700 million from? Where are these market dynamics at play? Where are they at play? So we're going to examine the market first. Number two, we're going to examine, should the Mets pass on Soto? And if they decide to pass on Soto, then what? What could be a potential plan that could be, decent? And number three, all comes down to money, folks. What teams, if it's going to take an overpay to get Soto, what are the teams that can actually afford to overpay, can actually get it done? All right, folks, we got a lot of interesting information. And again, if you love interesting information and you're passionate MLB, especially Mets fans, this is your channel. Like and subscribe. All right, so let's go into Soto's crazy demands. Where is he getting this, these figures from? Where are they coming from? So let's start here. Soto, when he was with the Nationals in year four, so this is before he was traded to the Padres, mid-season, he was offered a 15-year contract by the Nationals at a value of $440 million. That comes to approximately $29.5 million a year. Now, what they did is they wanted to see if they can entice Juan Soto to forego his last 2 years of arbitration and sign early, right? So, you know what? Juan Soto's case, you don't have to worry about getting injured in year 5, year 6. You are secured with that huge bag of $440 million. But here's where I think the big mistake and miscalculation was for the Nationals. At that point in year 4, Juan Soto was already making $17 million. $17 million. Now you see a lot of contracts where, whether it's Julio Rodriguez or other young guys, you offer them these ridiculous sums when they are making nothing. Juan Soto was literally almost almost in year five when you offered him that contract. And in year five, he would have been making $22 million. This current year, he made $30 million, which was already over the average $29.5 million. So the Nationals' miscalculation is they offered that contract very kind of late in the arbitrational years of Mr. Juan Soto, where that average value that they offered, $29.5 million, wasn't much more than the $17 million. And he was only 2 months away, 2 months from the end of that year, from earning $22 million. So that's a $7 million difference. So at that point, Scott Boras and Juan Soto formulated and devised a plan. All right, do you want to get the $440 million, or do you want to get much more money? And they said, let's stand pat. In year five, he made $22 million. In year six, with the Yankees, he made $30 million. So that was an additional $50+ million that they made the last 2 years, average of $25 million a year. So he really didn't lose much money the last 2 years. A lot of people say there was a lot of risk, but if Juan Soto, barring an injury, he did not leave a lot of money on the table. So him, turning down that contract, he had confidence that his play would keep up and that, of course, he wouldn't get injured. All right, so he turned that contract down. Now, where are we getting $700 million from? $600 million. Currently, the top players in the game will go, let's say Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts, I would say he's one of the best all-around players. His contract sits at 12 years, $365 million. He signed at age 27. That comes to an average of $30.4 million a year. He is one of the best two-way players in the game. He's only making $30.5 million a year. Look at Aaron Judge. He signed just a year and a half ago. He signed a 9-year, $360 million contract. That comes to $40 million a year. We know Aaron Judge came off of that magical 62 home run season. He was a little older. The biggest offensive contract for an offensive player specifically would be Mike Trout's 12-year, $426 million contract, and that comes to an average of $35.5 million. Yes, you have Julio Rodriguez's contract out there, but there are a lot of things at play. So I'm not even going to include that contract. But even if you look at these contracts for strictly offensive players, Mike Trout has the highest total value contract of $426 million, and the highest average annual value is Aaron Judge at $40 million. So where are we getting these figures? Okay, so Ohtani last year made 10 years, $700 million. That comes to an average annual value of $70 million. Very easily calculated there. Now, there are interesting ways that they are paying Ohtani. A lot of money is being deferred. It's going to pay him in the future. The annual average book value that the Dodgers have to put on the books is $48 million, which gives them an extra $22 million to play with, acquire other players. And this is the way they structured the money. So $48 million is on the books. So, you suppose he wants to be the highest paid player in the game, right? Ohtani's special. He's a two-way player. And when you heard that $700 million, you heard that, they were playing two players, $350 million for an elite hitter. And that's right around Betts. That's right around the top hitters, Aaron Judge. And then they gave him $300 million as a top pitcher. So that, $350 million. So that made all the sense in the world because you were getting two players. Now you're only getting one player in Juan Soto. So where is this calculation coming to? And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why it's coming to these ridiculous numbers. And I'll tell you, at the end of the day, it comes down to one big crazy factor. Here's the answer, folks. He's not worth the money. He's not worth $500 million. He's not worth $600 million. He's not worth $700 million. All the players who have similar or better skills than him are making far less than him. The only guy who is making more than him is a unicorn who can pitch at an elite level. He can be a top Cy Young Award winning candidate or a top hitter. That is Shohei Ohtani. What they want to do is they are looking at Shohei Ohtani's total contract value, and that's what they want. But in terms of the value that Juan Soto provides on the field, he doesn't provide that type of value. So again, why are we getting to above $500-600 million? Why are we getting there? Well, I'll tell you this. It's going to be a situation where you're going to get a few owners who are going to crazily overpay. They are going to crazily overpay over market value. Market value is already set. They are willing to pay over market value. Now, if Steve Cohen, Brian Cashman, if all these other owners decide and general managers decide that, hey, we're only going to pay this guy $450 million or $500 million, that is it. That is going to be the cap. But if Cashman goes, I'm going to give him 550, and then the Cohen goes, all right, I'm going to give him 600 million, and then another team goes, I want to give him 650. That is how you get to $700 million. It is not based on past contracts. It is not based on past value. It is based on ridiculous potential overpays. And now you have Boris, and now you have Soto planning this for years. The way they attacked that World Series press conference, the way Soto answered questions, that was a rehearsed performance, folks. That was rehearsed. The way he says no team has an advantage, the way he gave the Yankees no edge. I mean, that was ice cold, folks. Whether you like the Yankees or not, that was ridiculous. The Yankees treated Juan Soto like a god. Even if he lied and said, you know what, I love to stay here. I mean, that wouldn't really mean too much. That wouldn't mean too much. At the end of the day, he knew he was going to take the most money, but he couldn't even give the fans that. He had to give the Yankee fans, and I'm not a Yankee fan, but he threw a dagger in their hearts. Just because at the end of the day, the coldest and the most calculated players usually get the most money. Last year from Shohei Ohtani, you didn't hear anything. You did not hear anything. You heard a couple things through an interpreter, but it was very bland. Gary Cole, who got the highest contract from a pitcher, average annual value for a pitcher, a couple years ago after the Houston World Series performance. They asked him if he was re-signing. The guy was cold as ice. And this is what the guys do who get the most demanded, who end up with the highest contract. They play it right. He's been planning this for years. He's been planning it for this moment. Okay, so that's where you get Soto's crazy demands, and the market conditions will only be lifted by demands from crazy owners, and they are not basing that on its true value. They are just basing it on what they want currently. And I mean, you could say through merchandising, general play, they'll make it back. At the end of the day, you got to look at how teams are structured. This is a set payroll. Now, even though you can go way past the luxury tax thresholds, there are dire consequences if you go over the biggest, let's say Steve Cohen tax. If you go over that and you lose you lose international draft money, you have to pay a ridiculous almost 2 times the tax. It is just not worth it. It's not worth it. If you allocate so much money to just one player, that severely compromises your ability to build a successful team around them, unless they are able to be creative. And this is why, I kind of push for the Mets to do so, because if they do give a crazy $600 million contract, it's got to be deferred. It's got to be deferred and structured in a way where the New York Mets can still build a talented team around him. And that's what I'm going to say on that. All right, now let's look at number 2, our second part of the video. I apologize for people who don't like economics. I apologize for that first part, but I always like to examine market conditions, and market conditions, you usually look at past contracts. Okay, so the second part of the video, we're going to look at what if the Mets lose out or decide to go in another direction. From this, I'm going to get a little help because former GM, MLB Insider, actually examined this. he projected Soto to sign back with the Yankees, right? So that's his projection. So in that type of instance, if Soto lands with another team, what would happen with the Mets? How would the Mets allocate their money instead of spending $600 million on Soto? For the Mets, they would have quite a lot of money to spend if they didn't get Juan Soto. All right. The Mets focus on starting pitcher in free agency. That's the key. Focus on starting pitching. Who could they focus on? Well, in this Jim Bowden scenario, instead of putting the money towards Soto, you put the money and you go aggressive after Corbin Burnes, and you sign Max Fried to long-term contracts, and you bring back first baseman Pete Alonso, and that would essentially cause you to drop more than $500 million in future salary. So this is the solution according to Mr. Jim Bowden. Burnes was obviously one of the best pitchers last year. He went 194 innings, tossed a 2.92 ERA with the Orioles, 1.10 WHIP, and 3.4 WAR. Fried was 3.25 with a 1.6 WHIP in 2024. And Alonso, we know what Alonso did: 34 home runs, 31 doubles, and there are things that we have to do to Alonso to maximize his overall performance. Okay, so that is an alternate scenario by Mr. Jim Bowden. My alternate scenario would include a way different offseason. I'm not saying I wouldn't go after Corbin Burnes. I'm not saying I would go after Max Fried, but we still have to do a better job at boosting our offense, because if we re-sign Pete Alonso, that means we have the same offense that we had this year. So we would have to add on to that. We would certainly have to add. But still, I say our centerpiece has to be Juan Soto, and I say that we have to have a mega offseason. I say that we have to have a Dodgers-like offseason last year, and honestly, I do think that we are going to do that. Now, let's go to our fourth part of the video. Who can afford to actually overpay the man? Which teams are, and this is where it's very important. This is why I like interaction. So this is some information I'm getting. You tell me if you agree or disagree with these specific four teams that have the so-called ability to overpay Mr. Juan Soto. So Juan Soto is going to create a bidding war. And this bidding war, like I said, when you get these crazy owners willing to overpay, is going to increase the value of Mr. Juan Soto. Okay, wherever he winds up, there's going to be only one thing known for sure. Soto is going to get paid. A player that good at his age, he fits every roster and every competitive timeline. All the league's heavy hitters are going to be in on him. There's no doubt. And that's the kind of competition that agent Scott Boras knows what to do with. A ballpark for Soto's next contract would most likely start around $500 million. And, that makes sense. That being that he was already offered that contract of $440 million that we spoke about in the beginning of the video. Okay. So most people think according to some folks, most people think the starting point is going to be $600 million. All right, that's crazy. But wait, you may be thinking Shohei Ohtani got $700 million and largely was deferred, and he's objectively more valuable than Soto. He's a two-way unicorn, which is strictly speaking, but it also misses the point. Contracts aren't determined by meritocracy. They are determined by leverage. And while Soto isn't the type of two-way phenom Ohtani is, he does have all the leverage in the world. So while he's not an Ohtani player, here are four teams who might be willing to severely overpay. And that's a good word, leverage. And these owners are what gives Soto leverage. Okay, so let's go in order here. And the fourth team that we have on our list, the fourth team that could severely overpay, and I would have to say a severe overpay would be a $700 million contract. So the team that we have as number 4 is the San Francisco Giants. The Giants, true to form, have been mentioned on the outskirts of the Soto sweepstakes, and they seem to be in many of these large market free agents over the years. Carlos Correa, Aaron Judge. They are always in these mega contract conversations. While it's unlikely that it is finally the time San Francisco lands a big free agent they've so desperately sought after, money certainly won't be an object. Blake Snell has already opted out, and fellow pitcher Robbie Ray joins him. The Giants will have just $105 million committed in 2025. For a team that has had payroll north of $200 million in the past and has plenty of built-in economic advantages, that's an awfully low number. See, that's the thing to factor. San Fran is going to have only 105 on the books. That's crazily low. They're going to have a lot, and this is where when you look at market condition, which big market teams have a lot of money to spend, and this is what builds the value of Juan Soto. Market conditions, and San Fran has a lot of money to spend. Again, Soto seems unlikely to sign up for a West Coast team that he's been mired in mediocrity for the past years. But if you're looking for a good team that could come out of nowhere with a monster offer, and that begins with a $700 million offer, the Giants are that team. Does he want to play there? I don't know. West Coast, big ballpark. We've seen other players turn down there. A lot of players have turned down San Fran. Okay, now let's look at another team that could possibly come at Juan Soto with a mega offer. Number 3, the Toronto Blue Jays, and that's been another team who has made massive offers throughout the year. Most recently, Shohei Ohtani flying to Toronto. Ridiculous. That was funny last year. All right, how do we know the Blue Jays are up for the Ohtani-esque number? Well, because they were willing to literally pay Ohtani last winter until that great flight tracking debacle of 2023 resulted in him actually winding up a Dodger blue. But Toronto remains a major player. Its owner group, Rogers Communication, is a massive company with very deep pockets, and the team should be desperate to put a winner on the field coming off of a last-place finish with both Vladimir Guerrero and Bo Bichette headed toward free agency. If the Jays want to convince one or both of its foundational stars to stick around for the long haul, signing Soto will be a heck of a way to show the team's dedication to winning. Okay, now these teams, although they have money, and San Fran, I gave you the reasons why I don't think they're. Now Toronto, Juan Soto has mentioned a couple of things. Number one, obviously he's going after the money, but he mentioned he wants to go to a winning organization. Toronto finished in last place. They haven't traditionally been a winner. It's not like, I think the last time they won in the championship was in the 90s, the low 90s. So it's been a while. So they're not traditionally a winner. And then he's looking for stability. And you have Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hitting the market next year. So you're not going to a winner. You're not going to a stable place. So, that's part of what Juan Soto's formula is that he has put out there. All right, so now let's get to the top 2 finalists, and I think that this is going to be very serious here. Now, number 2, let's go to none other than the Bronx Bombers, New York Yankees. Obviously, New York Yankees, they've literally made that massive trade for Soto last year with the intention to re-sign him. And if not, hopefully win a World Series in 2024. Came damn close, didn't happen. If any team could afford a $700 million contract, it's the Bronx Bombers. A franchise valued at something like $7.6 billion. Hal Steinbrenner's infuriating protestations to the contrary, this organization is swimming in cash, and it'll be even more so if he keeps making trips to the World Series with Soto on the field. Just like George used to always say, the boss, you have to spend money to make money, and winning, you make money. They built their brand up. Okay. So supposedly, a guy like Soto could be viewed as being born and tailor-made to play in the Bronx. There should be no team more motivated to land Soto this winter than the Yankees. Aaron Judge, Garrett Cole aren't getting any younger. Gleyber Torres is hitting free agency himself. There's not a whole lot up and coming talent-wise to speak of. It's Jason Dominguez. That's it. All due respect to Austin Wells and Anthony Volpe, if New York loses out on Soto, things can get awfully uncomfortable in a hurry, and expect Soto and Boras to use that leverage to their advantage. No price should be too high here. And I'll tell you this, the Yankees, yes, they are that winning team. Okay, so they check off it. They have cash, winning, cash, right? So they have cash, winning. Now, the other thing that Soto's looking for is stability. Stability is what they don't have. And even if we go to the payroll situation, they are not structured like the Giants. Giants only have $100 million. The New York Yankees have a lot of money allocated to a few players that have mega contracts. Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge, Carlos Rodon, DJ LeMahieu's making a little bit, Giancarlo Stanton, but you have a few guys making a good portion of the payroll. Then when you look at the future, there is instability. Is Brian Cashman going to stay? Is Aaron Boone going to stay? The future, you got Jason Dominguez, and that's it. Anthony Volpe's a nice player, but it doesn't look like he's a superstar. So there are many questions. And then if you do sign him to a ridiculous contract, if you're the New York Yankees, how does that, compromise? How does that potentially, compromise you for the future? And I think it will potentially compromise you. And Soto is a very, very smart and meticulous player. He's been planning this for years and years and years, like we already spoke about. Now we're going to get to the number one suitor, in my opinion. This is the team that I think has everything. I think they have the payroll. I think they have the talent. They have the winning. And they have the consistency. They have the consistency. So number one, we're going to go to none other than the New York Mets. Okay, so of course, while the Yankees are the most desperate team in the running, and it's not good to be desperate, folks, and that's another good thing about the Mets. Despite really, really wanting him, they are not desperate. They're not desperate. And, they're not. They're not. That honor, the Yankees, they're not the richest. That honor goes to the richest owner in baseball, Steve Cohen of the New York Mets. We know that Cohen is willing to fire the money cannon, and with plenty of money coming off the books, team president David Stearns has already hinted at a big offseason coming. It could take a little something extra to pry Soto away from a team that he clearly enjoyed playing for, and the Mets need to go big if they want to once and for all usurp the Yankees atop the New York sports pecking order. The Mets do have other holes to fill on this roster, particularly in the starting rotation, and Pete Alonso could leave a gaping hole at first, but the chance to sign a player like Soto only comes around once in a generation. So Cohen might not get a better opportunity to vault his franchise into the stratosphere. So, that being said, I got to say this. If we look at the opportunities Cohen has had since he became owner, right? I think he's acquired the best shortstop. Francisco Lindor, in the last couple of years, he was the best shortstop that was available. Now, I think we have the best opportunity. Shohei Ohtani was never going to come to New York. Now we have the best opportunity to acquire the best player, offensive player available, that's been available since Cohen's had this team. I think this is our fifth offseason, right? So this is the best. And if you look at the next couple offseason, Soto still will be the best. So if you're going to invest money, let's say you get two top players and they play him $300 million each. I'd rather play a generational player in Juan Soto. It's how you invest your money. It's where you invest your money. I think Juan Soto is a guy who's going to age well. If he's a guy who's going to be a DH or a first baseman in the future, so be it. He's a Ted Williams-like hitter. He is a guy who is 26 years old and going to get better. He's a guy who can be your cornerstone. You can merchandise. He's a guy who can build the brand. I wanted Ohtani because I thought it was worth it. I thought it could build the Mets brand, but Ohtani didn't want to come here. Soto is a guy that can help build your brand around the world. Well, Mets are going to have to get creative. David Stearns are going to have to get creative. Those are my thoughts. If you haven't got a chance, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think, and I will speak to everybody soon. And again, thank you everybody for the comments. New subscribers, thank you for joining us. People who have been following the channel for years. I can't say thank you enough for all the support you've given as well. I will speak to everybody very, very soon, and have yourself a great day.